All right, we are good to go. So what we're going to do today is we're going to continue our look at attention. Today we're actually going to take a look at some of the hands-on experience that you got in terms of attention by taking a look at the two CogLabs that you participated in, the results of those, and taking some time out to discuss what does this all mean, what do these effects truly mean in terms of how we process and understand the world. But before we get to that, we have updates or the next step on two bonus points opportunities for this course. So the first one is assignment number 2 for the social media professional development. So a number of you took advantage of assignment number 1. That's great. And now we're going to continue building your professional social media presence so that you can maximize your connection and efficiency in psychology. So for assignment number 2, this is all part of finding your community in your social network. And one of the easiest ways to start that is to join or follow professional psychology organizations. So for this particular assignment, you are going to be asked to follow 3 accounts. The first account is going to be PsyChi. Now, PsyChi is an international honor society in psychology. It is all about student success, so undergraduate and graduate student programs. They have chapters all over the world, including here at South Bend. I am the advisor for the IUSB PsyChi chapter. And what they have is they have a lot of opportunities for students, scholarships, internships, presences at conferences. They have a lot of information for students in terms of opportunities in other areas. So this is a great place, especially for your kind of stage of your career. So this is the first account that you need to, or I'm asking you to join for assignment number 2. And for all of these, if you're wondering how to find the particular account, in the student lecture slides, you can find the slides for social media professional development. And for PsyChi, what you can search for is their Twitter handle right here. So @PsyChi Honor, that's the account that you want to follow. And that'll get you plugged into that student resource for excellence in psychology. So that's account number 1. Account number 2 is for the Association for Psychological Science, or APS. This is the second largest psychological organization in the United States, and it all has to do with the science of psychology research and those sorts of resources. So for this one, it's @PsychScience, so you want to follow that. And again, they post a lot of information on what is being done most recently in psychology, what are the newest advancements, what are the newest developments, as well as other resources such as conferences coming up, other opportunities coming up, people looking for employment, things like that. You can also find that in this community. So that is account number 2. And then the last account is for the APS, the APA. So this is the American Psychological Association. This is the APA of APA style. So this is easily the largest psychology association in the world. And it's actually so huge that you can join APA in general, but you're also going to want to kind of specialize. And what they've done is they have divided their organization into a number of different divisions. And each of these divisions serves a specific area of psychology. And I believe there's more than 50 of these divisions. So they have the Society for General Psychology, they have Behavioral Neuroscience and Comparative Psychology, they have Society for a Psychological Study of Social Issues. And what I want you to do is go through that list, and you can find it at apadivisions.org. Go through that list and pick one division that you are interested in, one division that maybe the future, your future psychology career will be in, and then follow that particular division. Go to their page, see if they have an active Twitter account. I'll give you a little foreshadowing. Not all of them do, most of them do, but not all of them. But find one with an active Twitter account that you're interested in that particular area and follow them. So for example, for myself, Division 10, Society for the Psychology of Aesthetics, Creativity, and the Arts. That is a division that I follow. So when you get to their homepage, if you search on their homepage, they should have information or a link to get you to their Twitter account. And then this is at APA Division 10. So if you are interested in the psychology of art, that is the one that you would follow. Whatever area of psychology you're interested in, there's a division for that area. So this will get you plugged into that APA community, but in a more specific, rewarding way in a particular area that you're interested in. And just to kind of give you an example of the types of information that they share and resources that they share, literally the first tweet that I saw after I joined APA Division 10 was this one. And it says, are you or your students interested in applying to grad school in the psychology of aesthetics, art, creativity, and the arts? Here's a growing list of grad programs. So literally one of the questions I get most as an advisor from senior students is, how do I find a grad school? How do I find a grad program that I want? Where can I find resources that lets me know I want to do clinical psychology? Where are the programs? I want to do this type of psychology. Where are the programs? Well, if you're interested in psychology of art, right here is a list of the programs. And you can just peruse right down that list and start choosing which colleges and programs you're going to apply to. It is massively helpful to have that kind of backing from a community that you're a part of. So that's the goal for this assignment number 2. So follow those 3 accounts. PsyChi is your first, APS is your second, and then any division that you choose from APA is your third. Send me a screenshot of your following page via Canvas assignments that list those 3, and then you can upload your screenshot to Step 2, Psychology Organizations, and that's in Canvas, Social Media Professional Development, in the Assignments tab, Step 2, Psychology Organizations. And this will be due, just like the first one, Monday by midnight, this time Monday, February 3rd, by midnight. Any questions on assignment number 2? Yep. Oh, yes. So if you've already gone through some of these assignments from previous semesters, you can still do it this semester. Upload the screenshots just as you were. I do tweak this occasionally, so people that have done this last semester will know that this was one of the last assignments that we had in the social media professional development. So it is a continually developing procedure. But if you're already there, then definitely submit your screenshots, pick up your bonus points, and it's fine if you've already participated in that. Or if you went out on your own and after you signed up for your professional Twitter account, just started following a whole bunch of psychologists and psychology organizations. If you've already done it on your own, absolutely. Just take screenshots, upload them, get yourself those bonus points. Any other questions? All right. So that is the announcement for the first bonus opportunity. Now let's take a look at the second one. So we are now in week 3 going to introduce the second bonus opportunity program that I have for my courses, which is Innovations and Suggestions. So what we're going to do is starting this week, we're going to have a weekly survey where you can submit any suggestions that you have for how to improve this course, any innovations, new ideas, new techniques, new strategies, new ways of learning that you can suggest for this particular course. And we're going to do this on a weekly basis. So why are we doing this? Well, one of the best ways to make sure that your course is great is to continually try to innovate and improve. So I'm always looking for suggestions. I'm always looking for new things to try out, in future classes. So that's one of the reasons why. The other reason is that this makes you a more active part of the actual course. So this gives you a say in the course creation. This gives you a say in the actual making of this course. This can help take you from being a passive receiver of information to actually having an active component in changing how this course operates. So by doing that, not only do you get a say, but you also become part of the community of this course by having a greater vested interest, a greater say in how and what happens in this particular course. So that's what we're trying to accomplish here. What is it that we're actually going to do? Well, this is going to be a 100% anonymous weekly survey. So it's going to be anonymous because we want to make sure that you can be as honest as you can. So if there is something that would improve this course, don't worry about your name being attached to it at all. because it is going to be 100% anonymous. I will not know at all. We're doing this through Qualtrics. I will not know at all who suggested what innovation or suggestion. So we want your innovations, your suggestions, what you think is going to help improve this course. And again, 100% completely anonymous. So once those suggestions come in, and once the deadline for each week passes, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at all those suggestions, and I'm going to choose the top 5, the 5 that I believe might be the most beneficial, and then I'm going to post those suggestions in a survey in Qualtrics. So we'll have a secondary survey, a follow-up survey, and those top 5 weekly surveys will be posted in a link that you get through Canvas announcements. And then what you'll do for the second half of each of these innovations and suggestions is that you will actually vote for the innovation or suggestion that you think was the best one, that you think would be most beneficial. So this could be something completely opposite to what I might think. So oftentimes I take a look at a suggestion and I might think to myself, this would be great. This would be great for students. But I also recognize the fact that I'm not coming at it from a student's perspective. So I might not have a clear vision of it. I might not have the experience that you have in the field, so to say. So we're really looking for your opinion. So just let me know through the link. It'll be a multiple choice question, and you just click on the choice that you like the best, the innovation or suggestion that you think is the best one. And then the bonus points for this is going to come from the writer of the top innovation and suggestion. So whoever contributed that top suggestion is going to get bonus points towards their final grade. But I can hear you thinking, wait a second, this is 100% anonymous. How is this going to be done? If it's 100% anonymous, how are we going to track it back to whoever made that particular suggestion? So this is where the random number generator comes in, and this is the other really important thing to remember. So in your survey links, in your Qualtrics link for you where you enter in your innovations and suggestions, you will see a random number generator. You will see a link to a random number generator that is up in Canvas, and we are just going to show you what that is like right now. All right, here we go. Okay, so this is available in Canvas. This is your random number generator. And the way that this works is you open it up in Canvas, you choose a blank cell, and then you basically just hold down your delete key, and you will see that number just randomly generate over and over and over and over again. Whenever you want, stop. And it will come up with a 7-digit randomly generated number. That is your number for that week's suggestion. So somewhere in your records, write this down. Write down your number, make a record of it, and then make your suggestion for the week. And that is going to be the only thing that is going to tie your suggestion to as being your suggestion. That's going to be the only tying information to identify that a suggestion came from you. So make sure that you write it down for your records, because what's going to happen is once we get our votes in, if your suggestion is the top suggestion, what you will do is you will send me your random number, and you will be awarded bonus points when it matches up with the suggestion. So in Canvas, when you're making your suggestion, it will literally say, what's your random number, and then what's your suggestion. That's the only thing tying it to you. So once that suggestion becomes the top voted suggestion, if you want to, and this is very important, if you want to get the bonus points, so it's completely up to you, you would just send me a message in Canvas Messages. You would just say, my suggestion was the top voted this week. Here's my random number. I'll match it up with what's in my records, and I will award you the bonus points. If you, for whatever reason, do not wish to take credit for the top suggestion, absolutely feel free to maintain anonymity completely. So it's 100% up to you. You're in complete control of the situation. But do make sure that you write down that random number, enter it into your suggestions. That's the only thing tying it to your suggestion. And that's the only way, if you win, get the most voted suggestion, that's the way that you can claim access to it Otherwise, I will not know at all where these suggestions came from. So once again, we're trying to innovate and improve. The survey, the innovations and suggestions link is up right now. So check the announcements. You can find that link right at this time. And then every Monday morning, I will post the top 5 suggestions for voting. So make sure that you get your suggestions in every week by Friday at midnight. That's the deadline for when the Qualtrics survey will be finished for the week. Then whatever suggestions are in there will be posted into the vote for the coming week. All right, that was a lot of information. Any questions on that? Okay, so I'm really looking forward to see what kind of new, maybe weird, maybe wacky ideas might be out there. All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to continue on with attention. Eventually, it seems like it's a never-ending series of announcements. Before we get to that, I just want to make sure that everybody is aware exam number 1 is coming up. So that is going to be a week from today. So it's Tuesday, February 4th, and it's going to cover certain lectures, certain chapters, and certain CogLabs. So the chapters and the lectures, it's going to cover chapter 1, it's going to cover chapter 4, and then it's going to cover the assigned readings, chapter 7, that should be 7.2, I believe, A through F. So it'll cover that, as well as the lecture's introduction to cognitive psychology. Not the first class, not your introduction to the course, but week 1, class 2, chapter 1, introduction to cognitive psychology. Week 2 will be covered, and then today's class will be it for the exam. So we're going to start on perception next class, but just to kind of give you that week to review this material that we're covering today to make sure that you're ready for the exam. That's why we're having the exam on Tuesday. So bear that in mind. We are going to keep going with the course. We are going to start new material next class. Next class is not on exam number 1. It's going to be on exam number 2. What's done today is going to be the end for exam number 1. And then also we're going to cover today's spatial cueing and change detection. And those CogLabs will also be assessed on exam number 1. So in terms of the readings here, it is 7.2, not 7.4. So you might be wondering, why are we jumping to this small little section in chapter 7? Chapter 7 is a section on memory. We're going to get there later in the course. However, it does have this wonderful little guide for effective studying, which I think was very beneficial to know now at the beginning of the course rather than at the end of the course. So take a look at that information on effective studying, and it's got tips on using elaboration to increase your results from your study time. So we all have a certain amount of time that we can dedicate to studying. All of us just have 24 hours in a day. These are techniques to make the time that you allocate to studying the most effective possible. So things like elaboration, things like generating and testing while you're reading the material, things like organizing your material in certain ways, very simple things like taking breaks. Remember, the mastery training is distributed practice. This is the reason why it's distributed practice. Avoiding illusions of learning. There's nothing quite like spending time highlighting information only to realize that highlighting really does not do very much in terms of learning the information. So these are all tips to help you spend your time most effectively while you're studying. Be an active note taker. So read through these, try to incorporate them into your study patterns, and we're going to just cover that right at the beginning, test it on exam number 1, just so that you're completely aware of that information. All right, in terms of what exam number 1 is going to be, it is multiple choice. So for those of you that have come from my other classes, you'll know my exams come in 2 sections. Section number 1 is going to cover material from the readings that we did not get a chance to cover in class. So there is a lot of important material in the required readings that we just do not have time to cover in face-to-face meeting times. But they are important. You need to know of those to advance in psychology. However, I select material that is critical to know, that is the most important to know in cognitive psychology, and that's what we cover in class, in the lectures. So section 2 is going to be on those topics, the topics from the readings that are covered in class during the lectures. So things like endogenous and exogenous attention, things like parallel and serial processing, things like the physical symbol system hypothesis. All of those are very crucial and will be tested in section 2. Because of this difference in importance, section 1 will be only recognition type questions. So it will not require deep understanding. I'm not asking you to learn this material extensively on your own, but you need to be able to recognize it. You need to be aware of it. And because it is not as crucial, it's only going to be worth 1/3 of your grade on exam number 1. Section 2 is 2/3 of your grade. And that mirrors the importance of the material, the readings that are important but we just can't cover in class, versus the readings that we do spend time on and the ideas that we do spend time on in class. It'll be done during class time. It's the only thing that we're going to be doing during class time. And you'll need a pencil, and if you're feeling confident, no eraser, but maybe bring an eraser. And that's what we're going to be doing a week from today. Any questions on exam number 1? All right, off we go. Attention. So we're going to have a very brief recap about where attention comes from, stimulus-driven versus goal-driven, exogenous versus endogenous attention. And then we're going to take up the 2 CogLabs that you participated in. First one being change detection, to see just how, let's face it, horrible our attention actually is. And then we're going to take a look at spatial cueing to see how our attention actually operates in terms of like characteristics of how it moves. But again, let's just do a brief recap of where our attention actually comes from. So part of the attentional process is selecting information to process, right? It's selecting what information you're going to attend to, what information you're going to spend your processing power analyzing. And as we saw last time, there's 2 kind of major ways that you select the stimulus that you're going to look at. One of them is called stimulus-driven attention, and it's also known as exogenous control, exo for outside, genus for generated. So this is control of your attention that is generated from the outside. And this is stimulus-driven attention, where the stimulus itself, for whatever reason, because of characteristics of the stimulus, grabs your attention in a situation. So this is the type of attention where if anybody is ever talking to you and said, oh, and then this thing just grabbed my attention, or all of a sudden something happened and I looked that way, that's an example of this exogenous type of attentional control, selecting a stimulus based on characteristics of the stimulus. The other type of attentional control is goal-directed attention. This is endogenous, endo from inside, genus generated, and this is attention that's generated from the inside, and this is when you have a specific goal and then that requires you to select specific information. So sometimes these 2 types of attention interfere with each other. So if you're ever trying to study, but you're in a loud room where a TV is on, your exogenous attention is competing with your endogenous attention. So your endogenous attention is saying, I have an exam coming up, I need to study this book, I need to focus on the pages in this textbook. That's your goal-driven attention. Your exogenous attention is stimulus-driven, and it is saying, I hear loud music coming from a TV, it's trying to grab my attention, I want to focus on that. So if you ever have to pay attention, that means that you have endogenous attention from inside that you're trying to process certain information, but exogenous attention, stimulus from outside, is trying to grab your attention. All right, so that was a brief recap. On to change detection, CogLab number 1. So in this CogLab, 2 pictures were presented to you in alteration. So 2 pictures were presented to you one after another. And what your task was is you were simply asked to detect if there's a change in the picture. So are the pictures the same, or did something change between the pictures? And 50% of them were identical, and the other 50% of them had some small thing, sometimes not so small, but it had something that changed in the image. So half of them had no change, half of them did have a change, and your task was to say which ones were which. Now, there were two conditions in this experiment, and the two are no flicker and a flicker condition. And in the no flicker condition, the pictures that were alternating appeared immediately after one another, right? So as soon as, I'm doing that wrong. Here we go. They appeared one after another. So as soon as one appeared, the other one disappeared, and then back and forth. So that was the no flicker condition. In the flicker condition, there was a blank gray box that appeared in between the pictures. So one would occur, and then gray, and then another would occur, and then gray, and another would occur, and then gray, and then, they alternated between the first and the second. So let's take a look at a little bit of a live demonstration. So in the flicker condition, you might have been presented with this image here. And then you would have had a gray box interposed between the two, and then you would see this image here. And your task was to indicate, is there a change? So in this case, we'll do right hand up if you think there's a change, left hand up if you think there's no change. So once you have an idea, right hand up if you think there's a change, left hand up if you think there's no change. Whoops, where am I? Lost track. All right, so this one actually has no change. This one, there's no change between the two. Let's take a look at one where there is a change. And for this one, you can just let me know what is the change as soon as you see it. So once again, this is the flicker condition where we have two alternating pictures with a gray box in between. So hands up once you see the change. More people a chance. All right, I see most people get it. So what's the change? The lamp. So this lamp here disappears in the second alteration picture. And this is what I mean by not a small change. So that lamp is by no means some distant person in the background that is a very small part of the picture. That's actually quite a large portion and quite a prominent portion, very central. It's literally in the center of the picture. And then a large lamp disappears from the image. So that was the flicker condition. So now let's take a look at the no flicker condition. So in this case, we're going to see two images alternating, no gray box between the two. And in this case, once again, we'll do put your right hand up if you see a change, put your left hand up if you see no change. So let's alternate between the two. Yeah, so this one is very apparent, very quick. So it's really easy to see that that little girl is missing in one picture and reappears in the other picture. And then that would be an example of change, and then this one would be an example of no change, where you alternate between the two pictures, and it is very clear, very evident that there is nothing changing between these two images. So what were the results of the experiment? So we've had kind of like an in-class experience of this. What were the actual results? So here we have a graph of the results. So this is the two conditions. So this is the flicker condition, where there's that gray box between the two images. This is the no flicker condition, where the gray box is not there. And then this is proportion correct. So this is whether or not you correctly identified it as a change, if it was a change, or if you correctly identified it as no change, if there was no change. So higher bars are better performance. So in the flicker condition, we have that performance. So in the flicker condition, we were at about just under 70%. Now, you might say, oh, 70%, not so bad. However, remember that 50% is chance, right? If you were blindfolded doing this challenge, doing this CogLab, if you were doing the bird box challenge while you were doing the CogLab, you could get 50%, because it's either change or no change. You're right 50% of the time. So in the flicker condition with the gray box, you're not doing very well. You're just slightly above chance. If we take a look at the no flicker condition, you can see that the accuracy goes up to almost perfect performance. So you're above 90% correct in the no flicker condition. You are way more accurate in the no flicker condition than you are in the flicker condition. So this is an increase in accuracy. And one thing that we're not going to spend too much time on, but I will mention here, is oftentimes in studies like this in cognitive psychology, we use multiple measures to test performance, because sometimes it's possible for people to manipulate their performance in one measure by sacrificing another measure. And this is an example of that. So we have an increase in accuracy in the no flicker condition, but this increase in accuracy might have come at the cost of reaction time. So maybe for some reason, because of the way our minds work, we just naturally, instinctively take more time in the no flicker condition, right? So I guarantee you, if I forced you to spend 20 minutes on every single picture in the flicker condition, you would be able to get 100% accuracy, because eventually you would find that one thing that changed. So maybe the no flicker condition is more accurate because maybe we just instinctively, intuitively, naturally spend more time in the no flicker condition. Maybe flicker is annoying, and so we try to get rid of it early. We spend more time in the no flicker condition. So to answer that, is this increase in accuracy due to an increase in time spent? We can also take a look at reaction time. So here's reaction time in milliseconds. So we have 2 seconds, 4 seconds, all the way up to 14 seconds. So how long does it take people to identify or answer in the flicker condition versus the no flicker condition? And you can see that for the flicker condition, on average, you're taking about 12 seconds to decide if there's a change or if there's no change. So that's a very long time. In cognitive psychology, 12 seconds is an eternity in terms of how long this took. The no flicker condition, you took way less time. In the no flicker condition, you took about half that time, 6 seconds. So not only are we more accurate in the no flicker condition, we are actually also faster in a no flicker condition. So it's almost a double whammy of being better in this no flicker condition. Clearly, some sort of different processing is occurring in that no flicker condition. Any questions about the results for the change detection? All right, so let's take a look at some questions. So why are we so bad at detecting change? And kind of sub-questions for this. What does this indicate for how our minds actually process the world? So what does this mean for how we process the world outside? Any ideas? Any speculations? Okay, so that is one of the things that this actually suggests, that when we see things in the real world, we actually see things very broadly. We see things in very kind of broad strokes. And if you take a look at what you missed in the flicker condition, like that lamp that was right there in the middle of the picture, it kind of shows you just how broad these strokes actually are. Because we process our information in such a general way that one stimulus that is very clear to us, once we're paying attention to it, once we're specifically processing that specific area, and it's abundantly clear, nobody looked confused when I said, oh yeah, it's the light that's changing. Once I said that and switched between the two, there was not a single person in this class that said, well, I still can't see it. I don't get it. Everybody was like, oh, of course, it's completely obvious. So that means that when we're processing our world, we process it in very, very broad strokes. Now, let me ask you a kind of follow-up question to this. Does anybody feel like they process the world in very broad strokes? Do you have that intuitive sense? I'm going to take everybody's hand staying down as a no. So, do you But kind of like introspect on this. This is why change blindness was so incredibly surprising when psychologists discovered this, because when you're going through the world and you're navigating your world and you're experiencing the world, we don't feel like we're missing information, right? We don't feel like we're not aware of things that are going on. That's why change blindness was just so surprising. That's why when you show people, oh, you're missing the light, the lamp in the lamppost, they're like, oh my gosh, how could I possibly miss that? Because as you go through the world, you have that illusion of knowing. Remember we mentioned the illusions of learning. Well, you have the illusion of awareness too. We are not very aware of the world that we are living in and experiencing, other than what we're paying attention to at a particular time. So that was one of the surprising things about how we actually process the world. The answer is very little, but we have this illusion of being aware. So, any ideas about what this implication had for artificial intelligence? What was this sort of realization about how little of the world we process an important step in developing artificial intelligence systems?
It could limit the amount of processing that has to happen if you're able to kind of filter out the stuff that doesn't change and just look for the change that happens. Like when you have the non-flicker, you're not really looking at everything in the picture. You're just waiting until you see that motion of something that appears and that doesn't. So maybe looking at the AI in that kind of a metaphor.
Yeah, exactly. Any other ideas as part of it? Yep.
I was thinking like how if we see everything broadly, it scares me that we could make an AI that sees things much more detailed, and like what are they going to do with being able to process that well?
Well, that's a bit of a different question, but that's actually one of the things that is really fascinating about artificial intelligence, because on the one hand, we're making artificial intelligence. So oftentimes, artificial intelligence behaves very human-like. So there's already been studies where they have made artificial intelligence programs that they program in a certain way, trying to be as objective as they can, and the program ends up sexist, or the program ends up racist, right? Just because humans, I know, I can see confused faces, but if you're for example, doing an artificial intelligence program that's looking at job qualifications, right? That's reading through resumes. And you just simply say, well, here's this resume, and the computer says we should hire this person, and you say, no, you shouldn't, and then the computer updates. We'll go through how artificial intelligence is made and how these parallel processing networks are programmed. But you basically correct the computer, and then it changes its programming to make the answer more closely to the correct answer. Sometimes when humans do that, you end up programming the biases that you have into the computer program. So you'll end up with a sexist program. You'll end up with a racist program. So that's on one hand, is sometimes they think very much like us. Other times, they think completely unlike us. So there's this video game called Asteroids, which was like the second video game I think ever put into arcades, right? It's an ancient video game. People have played it forever. And there's a definite strategy that humans came up with about how to maximize, the strategy you're supposed to use for asteroids. What they did in artificial intelligence is they made a program to play asteroids. And all they did with this program was the program just randomly moved the little shooter and randomly pressed the button, right? It's almost as if you give like a very small child your video game. What are they gonna do? They're gonna button mash, right? So this program just button mashed off the beginning. And they simply had it record its score, and whatever it did, if it improved the score, it would do that more often. If the score went down, it would do that less often, right? And that's all that they had, and it would change what it does. When do I press the button? When do I, where do I move compared to where, the attacking aliens are? How do I do this? When they came back in the morning, this computer had strategies they had never seen before. It was just like playing a completely different game. So we have no idea in AI where we're going. Are we going to go with computers that think like us, in which case we kind of know what they're going to do? Or are they going to come up with completely new solutions, in which case we have no idea what's going to happen? And people are, and this is one of the things that I'm kind of a little bit skeptical about. And this is why oftentimes they'll call, for example, in the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, they recently started asking anthropologists to take a look at their programs. And you would say, why anthropologists? They look at bones, we're looking at the stars. They ask anthropologists to come in to identify human biases in communication that they have put in that would stop the search for extraterrestrial life. And you'll see those biases in artificial intelligence, because one of the things that everybody always is afraid of is that we're going to come up with an artificial intelligence and it's going to destroy everybody. You look at every science fiction story and the AI just wipes humanity out every single time. I mean, it's done it, 8 times in Terminator franchise by now, right? But that's always the move. AI always wipes them out, because humans, most of the times a human society that was technologically advanced encountered a less advanced technological human society, it has not gone very well for that less advanced technological human society. That's why aliens are always pictured as dangerous invaders. That's why AI is always pictured as the end of the world. But for all we know, we're going to develop an artificial intelligence, and the artificial intelligence is going to adopt us as pets and take care of us like those rich, purse poodles that everybody else has. And we're going to live the greatest lives ever in the history of humanity. The real crucial thing is nobody knows, because nobody can predict it, because it's a completely different mind. So anyways, we got off track here a little bit. But the implications that this has for AI used to fail massively. It used to be horrible. If you go back just 20, 25 years, artificial intelligence was not that good. And one of the reasons is because of the illusion that we somehow represent the entire world. The programming for AI tried to represent the entire world. And the amount of memory and processing that you need to represent the entire world was just way more than any kind of computer program could handle. Our minds can't handle it. Our brains can't handle it. So what they did is, when they saw change blindness, they said, well, wait a second, humans aren't representing the entire world. Why does our artificial intelligence system have to try to represent the entire world? And the idea that they came up with is the idea that the world is its own representation. That I don't need to code everything that's out there in here and take up valuable resources in here, because if I want to know something about the world, I can just look at the world. So for example, if I wanted to know what everybody is wearing in this classroom, I don't need to close my eyes and remember and represent what everybody's wearing. I can just look, and I can go yellow shirt, pitbull sweatshirt, striped sweater. It's right there for the taking. I don't need to commit processing power to representing that in my mind, which means that I don't have it represented. So if all of a sudden I was looking over here and somebody changed their clothes and they came back, I wouldn't know, because it was never represented. And that change blindness changed how artificial intelligence worked. Rather than trying to represent the entire world in the program, they said, no, let's just leave it out in the world. We'll have a way to sense it, and then we can use the processing power for everything else. Like taking over humanity. All right, so why are you better, more accurate, and faster in the no flicker condition? So any ideas what it is in the no flicker condition? We mentioned this before a little bit. Yep.
It was like the parallel versus serial processing. You had to remember where things were and direct my attention to the no flicker stuff. I kind of could just steer past it, and if I notice any flicker of anything.
Exactly. So the answer is that in the no flicker condition, you are doing this with a parallel processor. In the flicker condition, you're doing it with serial processing. So in the no flicker condition, you can see the entire picture. And if it changes, then it's immediately apparent, because you can process the entire picture looking for change. In the flicker condition, your strategy probably in the CogLab was to start looking at individual things. And you would say, let me look at this boat. No, the boat doesn't change. Let me look at this cloud. Cloud doesn't change. Maybe this person in the jeans, not that person. Maybe this person in the sweater, not that person. Maybe this car. And you go piece by piece. That piece by piece is a serial processing technique. Parallel processing, you can take a look at the whole thing, and immediately the change becomes apparent because you can process all of that information. The parallel processor that you're using in change detection is your motion processor. So motion is something that's very important for us. It's important to know whether things are moving, right? Nobody in the history of mankind, well, no, not nobody, very rarely in the history of mankind have you ever had to run away from a tree. But oftentimes you have to run away from a saber-toothed tiger. So things that move are very different from things that don't move. We have parallel processors that are dedicated to recognizing motion. So when that girl was there and then she was gone, she was there and then she was gone, right? Look at what my hand is doing. Literally the only way that happens in the real world is if somebody's moving. If something's there and then all of a sudden it's gone, it means that something moved. That triggers that parallel processor, take in the information, process it very quickly, and you can see the change. All right, so what type of attention is driving the effect? This one, just for time to make sure that we get to the spatial cueing, I'll take this one. So what type of attention is driving the effect? It completely depends upon whether you're in the flicker condition or in the no flicker condition. So if you're in the no flicker condition, it's exogenous. There is just something about the disappearing image that grabs your attention. And you don't have to have the goal to notice it. Even if I gave you no instructions for this experiment and I showed you the image of the girl there and not there, you would say, oh, what's with the girl disappearing? It just grabs your attention. That's exogenous. In the flicker condition, it's 100% endogenous. In the flicker condition, you have to say, I'm going to pay attention to this boat. No, it's not there. It's not changing. I'm going to pay attention to this lamppost. No, it's not changing. I'm going to pay attention to this tree. It's got to come from inside. You got to pay that attention. All right, so to wrap this up, we are going to take a look at this in the real world. So just as one last sort of explanation or demonstration of just how incredibly little information we process, we're going to take a look at this kind of social experiment here by Darren Brown, where we see just how little information we process in our everyday world.
Most of us think we're pretty observant, but with a bit of mind control, I wanted to see if I could make these people take even the most obvious things for granted.
Excuse me, do you know how to get to Trinity Church from here? You see that church down there?
Yeah, straight through there.
And there's a big few buildings down there. You see that church down there?
Yeah.
You stay on there, which is a beautiful roadway. And then you walk down 2 or 3 blocks and Trinity Church is on the right hand side. We're walking in that direction.
Excuse me, you don't know what Trinity Church is, do you?
Might be Wall Street and Broadway.
Okay. Well, we're down here somewhere, aren't we?
Yeah, see, I mean,
Yeah.
it's like a tiny church. Yeah. If you keep going that way, you'll be way all the way to the clockwise.
That seemed almost too easy, so later on I see how far I can take it.
Excuse me, do you know where Trinity Church is?
Okay. Last time I switched with someone who looked a little bit like me, but where's the fun in that?
You know who that's right here? The other side, see what that lady standing?
Sure.
That's the pool. No, the lady in the gray.
The other side.
Yeah, the other side of the
But you
pool.
say you don't know where it is.
Exactly
So-
the street, no, but in that direction.
Okay.
Yeah, okay?
So just to kind of point out before they keep upping the stakes here, you can tell very, very clearly nobody's noticing the change. There is no surprise on anybody's face. There's no kind of double take and questioning your own perception. And any of these, there is just an unbroken string of directions being given. They don't notice that he has gone from the person that they're talking to has gone from one person to another. And part of this is, again, because we use the outside world as its own representation. When was the last time that you were talking to somebody and in the middle of your sentence, poof, they changed from that person to another person? It never happens, right? Unless you're talking to Batman, it never happens. So why would we need to represent very detailed the person that we're talking to? Why would we need to represent exactly what their face looks like in order to actively engage with them? The answer is we don't. We think we do, we think we might, but these demonstrations show that we just represent the individual as this is the person that I'm talking with. And as long as the change occurs to another person, it's person in person, and we don't notice the difference. So let's take a look at exactly how far it can go. And one interesting case where the person does notice.
Excuse me. Do you know where Trinity Church is? Come here. Yeah, fine. Come on, take it. You want to walk down? I'm going to catch some other people in this. Sorry. Okay, listen, once you go on Broadway, yes. Come on, the numbers are going.
All right.
Once you hit the Broadway, you're going down.
Okay, so he noticed, but he didn't notice enough to kind of clue in on it. So what did you, let's play that back just one more time and try to kind of think about what is different about this individual.
Excuse me. Do you know where Trinity Church is? Come here. Yeah, fine. Come on, take it. You want to walk down? I'm going to catch some other people in this. Sorry. Okay, listen, once you go on Broadway, yes. Come on, the numbers are going.
All right, so what was different about the way that he engaged with Darren Brown right off the bat? Yep.
Like more eye contact.
More eye contact? Is that, yep. So he had more eye contact, and notice that out of everybody giving him directions, he was the only one that immediately said, oh, I'll take you, right? So this person is clearly the friendliest of the bunch, right? Everybody else was like, oh yeah, you kind of go down here, you go over there. He was the only one that was like, oh, Trinity, yeah, I'll take you, come on, let's go. So clearly for him, because of the way that he, just his personality characteristics, his traits, he processed this individual more. He paid more attention to who they were. He paid more attention to their face, to what they are, because for whatever reason, for him, it was important that this individual was a specific individual. And that's why when the switch took place, he's the only one that was kind of like, whoa, wait a second. You know, something weird happened. But then notice that he still goes on with it. You know, he's not asking, well, where's the other guy? What happened to the other guy? So even though he does notice, he still hasn't processed enough to definitively say, oh yeah, no, definitely, this is another individual. Oh, actually, no, he did. He said he could have sworn it was the other guy.
Yes.
But again, we use the outside world as our representation.
That's brilliant. Thanks for your help. Excuse me. You know where Trinity Church is? Ah, right. Where are we on here? Somebody's there.
Go on. We are Brooklyn Bridge.
All right, so still no realization. And this switch especially lets you know just how little we're processing of the information around us. So this person giving directions wasn't like, oh my gosh, what happened? What's going on? Just kind of kept going. Didn't notice any changes whatsoever. And that kind of shows you the broad strokes. She did not process the race of the individual. She did not process the sexual expression of the individual. All she processed was person. Person's in front of me asking for directions. And then when the change occurred and it was another person, she couldn't detect the change because in her representation, nothing changed. It was a person and it stayed a person. And that just kind of shows you how little we actually process information in the real world. And again, this is another kind of idea that I'll mention a few times in this semester, is that your mind is as good as it needs to be, and it's as dumb as it can be. And what I mean by that is that our minds are here to survive. They're here to live in this world and thrive in this world. And they're not made to be super information processes. So they're made to do the least amount of work possible so that we can be the most successful that we can be in this world. And if we lived in a world where people's identities changed all the time, if we lived in a world where you could be talking to somebody and then poof, they would change into somebody else, then our minds would have evolved and developed to notice that change, because that change would be important. But we don't live in a world where that occurs. I'm looking at 30 people in this room, and none of you have changed into somebody else in the last 3 weeks that we've been together. It just doesn't happen. So our mind doesn't dedicate resources to that. And things like what we just saw in change blindness, that's the way that psychologists discover that, oh my gosh, that's what our minds are actually doing. There's a hand up? Yep.
What if he would have changed clothes, do you think, and the person would have noticed?
It's the easy answer for that is the person would notice if they processed his clothes. Whether or not they would have processed his clothes is another question. That would be like an empirical question that you would have to test. But on that note, one of the interesting things that they have discovered in change blindness is that it's a great way of showing what it is that you process. And one of the things that they found is that we tend to process more in more detail people that we identify as part of our group, and we tend to process less people that we identify as not part of our group. So when they did this experiment, and they used they asked directions from students, and they asked directions from more like student-aged individuals, and then more elderly population. What they found is that if the person that was asking for directions, if it was a student that got swapped out for another student, students were more likely to notice a change. Elderly individuals were not. If it was an elderly person asking for directions and they got swapped out with another elderly person, students were less likely to notice a change. Elderly people were more. Because when you identify somebody as part of your group, then you process them more. And this might be part of the reasons, just to kind of apply this a little bit further, why things like racism and sexism are so easy to develop, and why oftentimes it's easy to apply broad strokes to out groups, whereas you take finer strokes with your in groups, because when you process out groups that you're not a part of, that are not part of your community, you process them less. You're less likely to notice changes. You're less likely to notice the differences. And that's why it's much easier to say, well, all those people are the same, right? They're all like this and they all do that. Versus, well, all of my people, we're very different. You know, like we all have differences, but those people, they're all the same. It's kind of built in to how we process. We don't process some of the details for people outside of our categories. Oh, yeah, okay, so I jumped it. I jumped the question. So again, how might this affect racism, sexism, fake news, conspiracy theories? Basically, the answer for this is that if something is part of your group, then you will process it in a more detailed manner. You will pay more attention to it. You'll process it in a more detailed manner. If it's outside of your group, you'll process it in a less detailed manner, making more broad strokes. So that can help explain racism and sexism. In terms of fake news or conspiracy theories, this is, again, something that is occurring now. It's becoming more and more important. And change blindness can help us understand that as well. Because oftentimes what keeps going on with fake news and conspiracy theories is that people will seek out information that confirms what they know, and they will not pay attention to information that disconfirms what they know. They will be more likely to process information that comes from their group, and they're less likely to process information coming from outside their group. And this is one of the reasons why in things like Facebook, you get those echo chambers, and you will pay a lot of attention to people that you identify as like you. These people are part of the same group. These people are part of the same subreddit. They're like me, so I'm going to process that information more. But all the counterexamples, all the people that think the Earth is round, those people, I'm not going to process that information as much because they're outside the group, and that helps to promote these conspiracy theories and fake news. All right, so that was actually a really kind of in-depth discussion. I quite enjoyed that. The side effect of that is we don't have time right now to go through spatial queuing. So what we're going to do is we are going to cover this. This is going to be on exam number 1. We will do this next class. So next class we'll start up with spatial queuing. We'll finish off our look at attention. And then we're going to start up on the new stuff for perception. So if there's any final comments or questions, observations, anything. All right, so that's where we're going to end for today. So just a side note, make sure you're doing your mastery training. Mastery training, the deadline for chapters 1 and 4 is midnight, the day before the exam. So make sure that you're finishing up your mastery training if you haven't already. And also, social media professional development, assignment number 2. Make sure that you take the time, find the community that you want in APA. And innovations and suggestions, check the announcement in Canvas. I am very excited to see what you all might think. But other than that, we're done for today.